Hey guys, this is Josh Green with Artist Errant Academy. Today is a special day. This is the very first interview on the channel. I'd like to introduce my very good friend and former colleague, Anastasiya Serdyukova, aka Nastia. All right. So
Yes, hello Josh. Thank you for inviting me here.
glad you're here. Nastia is very vibrant, one of the most alive people I've met. Um, Nastia was born in 1993. She was a citizen of the Ukraine and Norway. And Nastia currently lives in Sweden, where she just finished up her master's in art conservation at the University of Gothenburg. So, Nastia, why don't you tell us a little bit about your wild background and all the languages you speak? It's incredibly interesting.
Okay, so yes, so my name is Anastasiya. Happy to meet you all. Hope it's going to be interesting for you to hear it. So my wild background started when I decided to be an artist in the beginning, and usually also my family has like a lot of artistical background. Like my father is an artist, my mother is art historian, so I grew up in kind of like the community surrounded by art and art galleries and stuff. So it was kind of like a clear path for me in that sense. And I started my first steps. I was after I done was with the school and college and stuff. I went to different classes, visited different like artists. I was trying to learn various techniques and get like along with the art. Then I got admitted in the art school in Norway, and it was like a contemporary based school for 2 years. So it was not like it was upper high educational program. So there I got to know how the art, like contemporary art works and all the great ideas, how they did get discovered. We've been traveling to New York, to Italy. So it was like super cool experience. But then I found out that probably I would like to get some solid base in terms of drawings and get like academical background before I step into the art world. So now I would like to show some of my slides, which I prepared. As I mentioned that I went to the art academy to start the classical art. My first journey was to the Florence Academy of Art. And it was based in Italy in the Florence city, of course, because they also have different departures, and it's one in New York and the other one is in Sweden. And actually, it's very near to where I live now, but I don't go there. So in the Florence Academy of Art, I studied for 2 years. So I didn't complete it. I haven't completed the study. Because the full study is 3 years, and I quit it on the second. So the main tasks and things I got to learn there was to the discipline, how to be precise, how to use size values, how to really copy things the way you see, how to analyze. The projects were lasting for a long time. You could draw one thing for 1 month. Sometimes if you got stuck, you would stay for 1.5. So the school was kind of very demanding, but it was a lot of pros for going there, which I kind of adopted to my personality. I got well structured. I valued the art. I knew how hard it was to do things. So those aspects were really brought a lot of advantages.
And these are your
So
drawings, correct? On the images?
yes, that's my drawings, and they are done with the charcoal, some of them done with the toned paper, and also like with the charcoal and white pencil. And the next stage, after you completed those cast drawings, you will eventually go over to the paint. I didn't went that far, I just did one cast in oil painting, and I haven't reached the level of color in paint, like still life and sport, like portraits in oil painting and stuff. And so I was basically got stuck in the drawings path. So we did some sketches. It was a lot of based, like the first year we were just focused on the bark drawings, and that was like copying and stuff that like you see the horse, that was exactly what I was doing, and took me such a long time. And then there was also live models and the portraits, just so we will not go nuts just by drawing the casts. And the other part of the day there was mixed with the like nude drawings. Yes, is it nude drawings?
Yeah.
Yes, probably yes. Yeah, you called that. And it was a months-long period when we were doing it. And there I reached like the paint just up to the limited palette. And limited palette was based on red, ochre, ivory black, and the white pigment, which was, I forgot. Oh, I really forgot it. But it was like titanium, and then it was like super linseed, not linseed white.
And lead white. Lead white.
Lead white, yes, the scary lead white toxic shade, but it was fine. We never died there. The teachers took care of us, so we lived long. And yeah, so that was a strict school. Yes.
So why did you decide to leave?
There were different aspects which made me go away from the school, and one of them, like there were some aspects I was not supporting quite. I felt like the artists and students who had like a bit more of an artistic identity and their touch and feelings to the paint and art and to the objects they see, they were not that much valued in the future. So the school was more based, and it was kind of an honest position from the school as well, that they are making the craftsmen, but not the artists. So the ones who really followed the rules and followed the stages precisely got more like appreciation from the teachers, and also like the style in the end, it was not kind of like that, like for me it was very kitschy in a way, and I felt like it's not quite what I wanted to go on with, so I dropped it. And also I got a bit disappointed in myself with the art. I was not feeling that I will find my future career, and I don't see myself there in the future. Like in contemporary art, there is a lot like you have to be working a lot, you have to be super creative, you have to challenge a lot of stuff. It's a very interesting road to take, but it was kind of hard for me because I didn't have that much ideas with my art. And with the Florence Academy of Art, when I studied academical art, I got also a bit disappointed because I was like, nah, I don't feel like drawing portraits and still lifes all my life. So I decided to quit and try another field. So that was like my hard decision to make.
Yeah.
So the next step was taken to National Academy of Fine Arts and Architecture, which is based in Ukraine, in the capital Kiev. And I was also like so far away from my home for so many years that I got like a feeling that I wanted to go back and talk my own language just to feel comfortable for a little while. And and there I went to the Faculty of Art Conservation. So I totally changed my field, but this academy was very strict as well, and we had a lot of disciplines to follow. We also had everyday drawing classes, we had painting classes, we had a lot of philosophy, art history, ethnographical, pedagogical classes, anatomy classes, chemistry classes. There was like lessons from 9 in the morning to 7 in the evening. It was very tough to be there, especially when you just arrived from the Florence Academy, where all your day is just focused to draw and paint, and here you have to do some extra studies which you're like, oh, please save me from here. But it was fun. Of course, my first year was the most exhausting one, like mostly mentally, because the rules and techniques I learned and adopted to my drawings from Florence Academy of Art, they were just not working when I came to drawing classes and painting classes in Ukraine. There was like more like Russian academical drawing, I don't know, probably it's called that way, and it's more based on the construction, more based on anatomy and your pre-understanding of the form. So you're not copying, you are actually building the form. And so this is like some of my drawings. It was also like more freedom to the stuff. You could draw the same thing like for a day, or you can draw the same thing for a month. You choose yourself how long time you want to spend with the life models and nudes. Because it wasn't that strict, but you had to perform well in the end. Like your drawing had to have, like was supposed to have kind of like a solid base in the ground. Like it was supposed to be readable that it's a human. Also, like the other disciplines we had as the conservators, we were obliged to do like master copies of old paintings. We were also doing like tempera. The tempera class was actually more focused, like we had to imitate the old icons, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm restoring icons. I don't want to copy icons, so I copied the flower still life from a Dutch still life artist from a long time ago. It was kind of advanced to do it in tempera, I must say. So never do this if you tell us. And so there was like the past where I started as an art conservation. I will just introduce you to shortly to some of my works.
So why did you switch to art?
Okay, well, I knew I had some friends which I heard they were studying art conservation, and for me it seemed kind of like as an interesting job to do, because first of all, after some years I understood that I'm more as a person which is managing the task when it has like a clear thing to do, but I'm very hard when it comes to organizing myself and make like structure my life. Like if I would have been an artist, I would have ended up to structure my life myself, and I found it I would have like I will never survive. So I tried, okay, let's try art conservation for a year and see how it's gonna go, because then I can get like a clear job in the museum or whatever it is, open my atelier, God knows what. And it was kind of funny, especially like when I said it to all of my friends, because they were like, oh my gosh, you're such a chaotical person, you're gonna explode all the paintings. But actually they all survived. I haven't had any big damages, or like not damages, but and then some weird situation. Like everybody survived. Like we fixed everybody and things were good. I just forgot the perfect word for it, so sorry. Yeah, so here's like some of my projects. Here was like, I think it was my second work as a conservator, and it was like a tiny icon, which lost kind of a big part of its color and image, but mostly it was damaged from the wooden bugs, like wooden beetles, and it's mostly seen from the reverse side of the painting. So I had to make the panel, because it's painted on the wood, to structure, like make the wooden panel solid to fill all the empty space, and then put the ground layer on the lost parts. And here it was kind of like a bit of a challenging task, because the areas were so small and tiny, and to polish it and fill it, like to make the filling perfectly, it was not that easy for me. But I learned now. I'm not struggling with that stage as I did the first time. So the icon became brighter. I cleaned it from the dust. Eventually, like it was not repainted. It just how art pieces turns out after they had been cleaned, because it was very dirty one.
I have some questions. So the far left image is how you received it. And then the image in the center, are
Yes,
you repairing cracks with the gesso? Is that what you're doing?
yes,
And then you paint on top of it to get the end result? Yeah.
mhm. Yes, yes. Um, and here, like we used, like I almostly imitated the original surface, and usually it's very controversial thing in the conservation world. I came more across to this when I studied in Sweden, but I come later to this. It's like too much to handle. There is a lot of ethics in art conservation, a lot of debates, like how to proceed, how to be ethically correct, all this like morals and stuff. There's so much things to follow and read, and you have to be so strong when you're defending your work. But that comes like further.
So was
That's
that
also
painting would people consider how you restored that painting unethical now in Sweden?
um it's a bit questionable, but like even I can say it's a bit unethical in some aspects.
Okay,
But
why? That's interesting. Why?
Um, it's also because like the schools in Ukraine and in Europe, they are very different. Ukraine is a bit stuck behind, and they're following the rules and methods which were very popular. Let's say like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. They're like due there's very little information develops in Russian. Like conservation world started to grow up in 1980s, 1980s, in
Yeah, that's
1980,
right.
like in 80s, it started to grow up and develop. New materials started to merge in, like synthetical materials and stuff. But all those things were introduced to conservation field in English, and I think that's like a major problem. People in Ukraine and also like in Russian, they lacking this knowledge, and they just get like information and sources which are translated into Russian. So I was already feeling that there is some things like I would have improved on while studying there. So that was also one of my main reasons why I decided to go to Europe for my master's. But also it's very good to take conservation programs in Eastern Europe countries because they have very damaging objects. I don't know why, but they do. And it's a very good training for an art conservator to deal with, because in Europe, things are more or less well stored and you're not experiencing like super tough things as you do here. So yeah, so it had its good sides, but also it had also the bad sides. I really loved that school. Also they were like more using like organical materials and stuff, but I wish like in my future I will come there and bring them some inspiration and new ideas on how to develop stuff, because yeah, but I will tell it more about it. So this is like also one of my paintings I conserved, and it's oil on canvas. Somebody cut it out it from the frame, like from the stretching bars, so it just came like a little broken flag or whatever. So I had to reline and place this painting on a new canvas. There was a lot of like tears, and we had to mend them as well. It was extremely dirty one. I think it was in the church, so it got like resin, so it
The
was
candle
hard to
smoke.
clean. And candle smoke, a lot of dirt. I don't have pictures here of the reverse side because it's okay, but yeah, it was extremely dirty piece of canvas, which became a beautiful painting in the end. So it was one of my favorites to work with. And here I go next to my bachelor diploma project. It was a huge wooden panel. It was 160 in height, almost as tall as me. So it was kind of a bit challenging to work with such a big one. Also, the wooden panel had 3 cracks. One of them was along the entire panel, and it divided the entire icon in two. And basically, what held those two broken pieces together was a little linen under the ground layer, like a protection layer between the wood and ground layer. There was a linen textile, and this linen textile held it barely, those two wooden
Linen?
pieces.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Linen
Yeah,
canvas?
linen.
Yeah.
Linen
Yeah.
canvas. So it was tough. That was scary to, you couldn't transport it that much, so I had to really work on it and glue those parts together and attach them. But the main problem with this icon was the varnish, and also like if you see here on the face and on the lower part of the painting, it's like huge gray marks, and I struggled to find the origin of it, and it was kind of like a cement thing. Like none of the solvents, none of the cleaning agents I used could clean it away. So in the end, I just scraped it off to the paint layer. And here it come like it was a very difficult moment for me to do, because somehow I had to find a way how to transport the old varnish on the areas where the varnish is gone from the face. Here I would like to share with you the part, how it looked like when I actually scraped off the gray area from the Madonna face. So as you see, the varnish was totally gone, and I had to create a method or the way how to transport the old varnish onto the lost part so it doesn't be seamless. And we tried different methods which teachers advised me to do. None of them worked, and they were like, okay, we're probably going to give up on this idea and make imitation of the varnish, like retouched with the watercolors and stuff, make it like tinted yellow down. But I didn't like that idea that much, so I was sitting on my own for a kind of long time trying different ways, and in the end I succeed. I managed to transport it. It was very hard, took a lot of time,
You
but
made a
in
new
the
technique.
end, yes, it was kind of a nice method to use. Basically what I was doing is that I was scraping off tiny layer with the scalpel of the varnish, like by thinning it out, and then I was like smudging it on the area as it was like a butter on the bread, just like but I had to do it with like millimeter by millimeter.
Well, you did a really incredible job on that image, and good for you for finding a whole new method to transport that varnish. Can you share with us some of your work experience?
Yes, one of my favorite was just recently accomplished, made, whatever. And I worked with the company Arts and Crafts in Sweden. We were 3 conservators and 1 assistant. And we worked in Karlskrona in Amornamentkyrka, and this church is under UNESCO World Heritage List, which was kind of like a big thing for me to be involved in. The lantern was like around 20 meters above the floor, so we worked kind of high in the roof. It was very challenging and scary, but it was like this lantern was conserved around 3 times, and we were like the 4th ones to work there, because every 50 years they have to do something there, since the air and humidity and the temperature jumps so much up and down during the year, and it's like a kind of a common problem in all the churches. So the painting has like big flaking issues. It was getting a lot of dirt and stuff, but thanks God it didn't have mold, so because it was very dry air. So we were consolidating it, retouching, cleaning it. It was a distemper technique, so it was kind of very water sensitive medium. Was huge area, but we figured it out. So that's it.
Nice. That's incredible.
Thank you. And the next one, I would like to talk a bit about my master thesis, which I recently finished. It was also related to the Swedish culture, and the title was Cleaning Research for the 18th Century Unvarnished Water-Sensitive Bay Tempera Paint. So in Sweden, they have such a thing as making funeral coat of arms, which were carved out from the wood. And you see like this banner on the left side of the screen. And this one was dedicated to Per Stålhammar, and he was like a very noble military officer. They were made between 16th and 18th century. And in this area, Sweden was called Stormaktstiden, which was like a glory time for them because they were winning a lot of wars. They were very powered. They had a lot of power. They were rich. So those banners were made for big commanders and officers and noble people, as I told before, for the burial processions. So they were carrying them to the church during the burial ceremony. And in the end, when they got buried in that church, they were placing those banners. They're kind of huge. They can be 2 meters big, 3 meters big. This one was at about 220 something, so it was a huge one. And it's like a big thing because you find them in every church in Sweden. But they're old and most of them were conserved, and usually Swedish people use like two methods. They were either repainting them or not doing with them anything, because the medium they were made of, it's a distemper paint, and it's a very hard technique to deal with because those things were not meant to be last forever. So it was like a temporary usage for them in the beginning. So the painting is very fragile, it flakes off. So of course it was very easy for people before to just overpaint it and make it like fresh and vivid as new. But in Kalmar Castle, they had a huge hall. It's called like the Gröna Salen, and there they're storing a bunch of those funeral coat of arms, which has been unrestored. And now the Gothenburg University, where I studied, they will work together and collaborate. So the students gonna help them out to restore those things. It's a good task for students and great for the museum. So I found out during my work on the banner that the blue pigment which was smelt was very water sensitive, and it had a lot of like dirt and dust which had to be cleaned somehow. And when it's a water sensitive thing, you can't use most of the agents which contains water because it's a hydrophilic object. So it was kind of an interesting research to do. I made more than 32 samples. We used accelerating aging to see how the cleaning agent might affect the color, or do they leave residues, and how it collaborates with the paint. I found some solution, and it was one of the most novel methods in art conservation, and it's nano-restored gels. But you as a conservator don't need to know it, but it's just like an overview of what it was about. And this is like the Kalmar Castle. It was starting to establish like in 12th century, and it got big in like 14th century. And Kalmar city in Sweden is a very historically important spot, because that's the place where all the kings and all the history of Sweden began. Like here, the Sweden started to to establish themselves as the country. They had their kings, and it was like the first castle. It was the area where it was most of the wars happening during that time. So everything started here historically in this castle, and it's still in very good condition. And here I attached 2 banners from the hall where all of them are hanging, and you can see how damaged they are, how dirty they are, and I cannot wait to help them to do something with it, because it's pretty sad to look at it. And so I would like to share some of my processes with this banner. And here you can see like a clear image of the small pigment, which was before it was cleaned and consolidated. It was very grayish. You could barely identify it as it was blue color under it. But in the end, we got it to a bright, clean moment. And now this banner is actually like this funeral coat of arms is already placed back in the museum, and it probably shines there like a pure star. And and here, like, I did some out of work as the teacher in the university to help the new first-year master students to work with this banner. So I assisted them, and my task was to show them how to restore and stuff. And I got the inscription area to work on. So here is like from the upper part, you see how it was before conservation, then it was like the process of conservation, and then the last one already conserved. And yeah, so here's like before and after stuff. Looks pretty golden clean. So that's all about what conservation is mostly all about. And I know that you, as since it's an art channel and probably most of you are artists, would probably like to hear some advices for a conservator. I don't know. I don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what is your advice on making art that lasts?
Yes, like the principles which we had in Florence Academy of Art, to use quality, expensive materials, pay attention to the recipes, follow the methods. It's a very good thing to follow for your paintings, because it will really pays off. I can really see the paintings and artists after, like, because I restore paintings which can be 50 years old, 100 years old, 200 years old, 300 years old, and I pretty clearly see when the artist really cared about this stuff or he cheated a bit. So here you have to be really careful. It's gonna be seen in the future, but it's fine.
So
We're gonna
quality
deal with
materials then.
that.
That's
Yes,
number
yes,
one.
yes.
Okay.
And following the recipes, methods of the past, and be very, very accurate with that. Also, I would like to recommend avoiding cheap cotton canvas. It's like a thing which is so bad. My soul is in agony when I facing the conservation of the cotton canvas. Because first of all, it's cheap, it's shitty, but for the conservator, it requires way more time to proceed with simple tasks. It's really like very hard stuff, and also which gonna make you pay more for the conservator in the end. So better linen, solid quality,
So
allow it.
linen
Linen is the best.
canvas, hemp or jute, all those are good.
All
Yes.
of them are perfect. Just cotton is the worst.
Okay.
Also, paperworks, like they can, the colors might get destroyed. So always care about UV light and profined glass, which has a good UV light protection. This is very important. Also, if you're having a lot of art and stuff, to avoid the mold growth, to avoid the cracks, that the binding materials are getting weak and stuff, like flaking. To avoid all those kind of stuff, it's very good if you store your art in 70-90 degrees Celsius temperature, and humidity should always be between 50 and 60. And even if it changed humidity, it should not jump more than 5%, like, because it's all affects a lot. Because I've been seeing like students, even in art academies in Ukraine, who are not following some simple principles, their works were already like destroyed on the second year of life.
So you'd say humidity and temperature changes are the biggest threats to your artwork.
High temperature is like super bad, like, because the dry air makes things crack like easily, like super easily. So yeah, but like it's a museum regulation, so you don't have to have it at home, but just like avoid to, if you're living, for example, in a warm country, like for example California, where it's a very high humidity, it's pretty warm there sometimes. There you probably have to have like a closed storage with a fixed stuff, because it's a high possibility that you're gonna get a mold grow, like super high, so avoid it.
Okay.
But it's fine if you don't follow it precisely. It's totally acceptable. It's just for the museums, and if you're really having like harsh surroundings. And then like also I would like to recommend to using the linseed oil a lot, because it creates the yellow drops. It makes the painting yellow a lot through the time, which is, I can fix it, but also like, why should I fix it when you can just avoid to overuse it?
So what do you think about walnut oil? Have you encountered that much?
All of them are good, but just like dilute them a bit with turpentine. Don't use them a lot purely. I know that like when the painting is getting a bit like matte and opaque, that you like to stroke the varnish to make a bit more glancy and brilliant. Be careful to not just like pour it down so it drips, because I have seen this and it's not that good. So like put it down on the floor, let it sit for a while, use a thin layer of oil and stuff. Then the varnish stuff, always recommend to be diluted with turpentine. The best proportion is 1:1, like 50% turpentine, 50% varnish. It will be, because varnish, yeah.
This is for a traditional varnish, like Damar varnish.
Yeah. Yeah, totally good, but just dilute it a bit, because we constantly have to renew the varnishes because they yellow over the time, and it's gonna be last longer and better if you add a bit of turpentine. And also avoid using non-professional conservators whenever you get into the trouble, because I have seen people who are finding amateurs and they were paying very little money, and then they were coming to me with like 80% of the image was gone, and they're like, hey, can you fix it? I'm like, yeah, I see you have been into the trouble. Like, of course I can fix it. I can repaint stuff, but now it's gonna cost you like 6 times more than you have thought about it, because now everything is gone and I have a lot of work to do after this amateur. And he's like, oh. So don't be like, it's good to pay to a professional. Always check up their portfolios, their backgrounds, their knowledge, because there are a lot of them and you don't want to ruin your art in case. Or it's not more like about your art, because your art is pretty new, so it's very fresh and strong and stuff. It doesn't have that many damages. But I mean, if you're, for example, your grandmother or your relatives gives you as a memory when they die, some of the paintings or icons, and they're pretty damaged because they have lived a life. Yeah, don't give it to the cheap people and try to pay a bit because it will be better. Yes. Oh, here I go to the next part of my show.
All right.
So here is where my artistic roots are coming along, because I mean, I want to do some art and I'm doing a lot of art as well. And my art is mostly based on geometry. I love patterns, geometry and stuff like that. So I started to draw drawings. And many people were kind of commenting that they're cool, blah, blah, blah. I should kind of develop it into some money income. So after the COVID and things, I was like, okay, I really need to make money somehow. So I decided to search a bit, and I came to conclusion to start my Etsy store. It's starting quite soon. They just don't want to accept my identity so far, so I'm waiting until they approve, and then it's open. There's going to be a lot of posters in various sizes on a very good paper. So, and my brand is called Amornament, for different reasons. It's because amo is love, ornament is ornament. I love ornament. But the second thing is because I'm Anastasiya Serdyukova as my brand name. So it all clicks perfectly. So yeah, and I got a help by designing my logo and stuff of a guy who is working with the fonts, and his name is Inigo, but I linked him in my contact, so he's a really cool guy. If you're interested to do some logos, he's pro. And yeah, so this is like some of my 3 posters. I have plenty, so follow me. I also, it's like it's a job. Like, I spent a lot of time there. I also have a person who works for me and I pay her salary, so it's like a big business shit. And
All right.
yes, it's really fun. She forces me to work when I'm like forgetting her to send the new batch of ornaments. She's like, are you still alive? Where is my work? And I'm like, oh, sorry. So now I'm really like motivated to work because there is a person who needs money to eat. So we're doing good.
Well, they're beautiful. You know, I love your patterns. I've always admired them, and I'm really happy that you're finally taking them serious and you're making a business. Yeah, and I definitely want some. So good job. Good job on that.
Yeah, the first months they're gonna be super cheap. Later on, like in August, September, the price might rise up. But now it's like the most expensive big one, like 50 by 70 is going to be like $18, like super cheap.
$18. That is very cheap. Yeah, so
You know,
everyone go.
it's just to figure out how everything works, because I might have some issues. But we should not tell it. Like, we are pro company. Come on. We cannot figure it all out. That's why go and grab one while they are cheap. So yes, and this is the context of my stuff. I have LinkedIn if you want to contact me for the professional reasons. I have both Instagram related for my art and my conservation. If you're interested in any of them, follow me. And then we have Etsy store, which is still not open, but like in a week 2, totally open. And then we have the logo design guy who is super cool, Inigo. Follow him. Great.
Great. And I will put all these links in the description of the video.
Well, perfect. We love it. Promotion.
Nastya, you've done so many challenging things. You learned French academic art. You learned Russian academic art. Then you went and you became a master conservator. And you invented new methods to conserve art. You've done this all in just a few years. It's really incredible. I'm happy I get to know you, and congratulations on your success.
I thank you. That's so nice.
Yeah, and I'd love to have you back on and maybe get some more advice on how to make art archival or how to repair artwork at home. You helped me patch a hole in one of my canvases, and
Oh,
I
super
think,
simple.
yeah, I think tips like that would be really useful to a lot of listeners. All right, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for
And
inviting me again. It was super cool to talk. Wish you all the good luck with your YouTube channel. It's really nice that you're starting it. It's challenging, but it's interesting. Like I love
thank you.
it.
All right, I'll talk to you
Yes.
soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.